So my name's Syed. It's a great privilege to be here. I'm still recovering from Chelsea's talk because, wow, that was really powerful. It's hard to hear something like that and not feel something. And I was looking around the room, it was definitely quite emotive. So thanks again to Chelsea and all the speakers in today's session, including that one. I think it really shows. I've only been here for this session just now, and because I've just sort of travelled up from London, I couldn't make it earlier. But if it was anything like how it's been today, I think it's just been a great day. So hopefully I'll try to live up to that standard. So today's talk is about your well-being. Now, well-being is a very broad term, so we'll take a couple of aspects of well-being and try to expand on them, try to have it as a kind of reflective space for us to be thinking about. And my hope for today is that you'll leave with a better degree of understanding about your well-being, and maybe a nugget or two to take away with you sort of practically to think about. But just a little bit about myself first. My name's Syed. I work at Maggie's. Has anyone heard of Maggie's? So a lot of nods, a lot of yeses, that's good. Has anyone been to a Maggie's? Oh, yeah, almost an equal amount, which is good. I think the local one to here is Coventry. I work at the Royal Marsden, which is sort of South London. So there's different Maggie centres across the UK, and just for anybody who's not aware, it's a cancer charity and provides various types of support for people affected by cancer, any type of cancer, and patients and loved ones as well. So I just put that out there in case you're curious, in case you're wondering where I'm coming from as well. So I speak to lots of people on an individual basis, but also group basis, whether they're patients or loved ones, and even within our own team and staff about well-being, which I hope puts me in a good position to talk to you guys and get you guys thinking about your well-being today. So let's see. Okay, so that's me. And thankfully, Kelly has already spoken to us about diaphragmatic breathing, which saves me. It saves me. You did it so much better than I would have done. So it saves me having to re-explain it, and I'm notorious for not being on time and not sticking to time, so that will help me out just to shave a few minutes. Now, I really struggle with saying diaphragmatic breathing. I've just said it there, so I'm really happy about that. If I can get an audio clip of that, that would be great, just as evidence. But sometimes I ask people, if it's just easier, to call it big belly breaths. BBB, easy to remember, big belly breaths, because as Kelly mentioned, we're breathing into our belly, our stomach area. And I think there was a question about, actually, do I breathe through my nose or my mouth, and how does that work? And I think Kelly's right, you don't have to be too conscious about that. But I heard a really nice phrase once, I don't know if you might have heard of it, that you smell the roses and blow the candles. So you breathe in through your nose, you smell the roses, and you blow the candles. So the reason I've put it right at the start of the presentation today is because I've got the great privilege of being in the final session today, but it also means our minds might be wandering to post-conference, to the commute back home, to weekend plans, to dinner plans, to our to-do lists, and that's only human. We wander, we look towards the next thing. So because this is about our well-being and it's very important, I wanted to just give us a chance to really just refocus in back here and know that your well-being is important, and there's nothing more important to be thinking about right now. So we just want to tune back in. If there's any thoughts or sort of a discussion in our minds that's taking us away from today, we want to try and tune back in, because we might be physically present, but not necessarily entirely mentally present, especially towards the end of the day. So if we can still, again, just maybe take 3 big belly breaths, that diaphragmatic breathing that you've already practiced today, just to re-anchor us back into today's session and to our focus today about our well-being. So I'll just give you a moment to do that. Again, it can be helpful to think about in through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay. So this is a bit of our plan for today. So be thinking about what is stress, and you might have had a sneak peek at a slide earlier, I think, about stress. But that's all good. That gets us thinking. So what is stress? And we'll use a metaphor to think about the process of stress. And it's quite a simplistic way to think about it, and hopefully an accessible way that you guys might be able to hold on to and take away with you after today. And it will have sort of an interactive activity aspect to it, using something called Mentimeter. So we'll go through each section of the metaphor of the stress bucket. And hopefully that will mean that we're thinking about, okay, what is stress in a general sense, but what is stress for me? How do I respond to stress? What helps me with my stress? And then we'll spend the latter part of today's talk thinking about self-compassion. It's very, very important in a general sense, but especially important in the world of cancer, where there's so many competing demands. I mean, if you think about even Chelsea's story, yeah, I mean, you don't really need to have too much of a discussion as to why self-compassion might be sort of a very important aspect of all of this that we're discussing today. And then I hope, if my timekeeping is okay, and I'll probably get some help with that, that we will, for those of you that want to, we can have a bit of a practice and experiential part to close the session of some relaxation sort of exercises that we can do together. Does it sound okay? Yes. Yeah? Okay. If it doesn't, I can't really shift at this point, so just bear with me. So we'll start from the ground up today, because stress is a very broad term. I'd like you, for those of you that are QR code friendly, to try and just jot some words down of actually what does the word stress mean to you, because it can lead us to lots of different ideas, experiences, images, thoughts. So any of that comes up, if you're happy to just kind of jot that on the Mentimeter. And for those of you that aren't accessing the Mentimeter, if you just want to think about that for yourself, I can see a couple of people might be writing it down. It's for your benefit. So there is a group benefit, but then there's your own benefit as well. So if you just want to think about what that word stress means for you personally, please do. I had a feeling anxiety would be a winner. We'll give that maybe a minute to run. A loss of control. Overwhelmed. Worry. Yeah. Okay, so we've got over 30 responses so far. We might get a few more trickle in, but you can see. Can you put a bigger scan up? QR code? I think the slide, can we go to the PowerPoint slide might have I think my slide has a large one. And then we can swap back in a moment. Is that better? Got it. Yeah, then we can swap back. So do people connect with a lot of these words? Yeah. These are what we would kind of expect to come up when we're thinking about stress. I can't see any that I sort of feel sort of out of place at all. But anxiety is a big one. And I sometimes think of that as a synonym to stress. And it's just to say that actually a lot of this terminology and the words we use are quite overlapping. They're all sort of connected to each other. But at least when we talk about stress today, we know we're talking about all of this. And I'll read some of them out. Anxiety, overwhelmed, worry. We've got lack of sleep, that's a big one. That might have come up in different ways. Fatigue as well. I know I saw trauma somewhere. Anger as well. Panic, fear, tears. There's so much there. And that's why it's important to really unpick what does this word stress mean, because it can show up in so many different ways. So thanks everyone for connecting with that word. And I know even that can be quite challenging, and it can bring up things for us. It can bring up memories for us. One thing I wanted to share with you, and if we can go back to the slides, yeah. So one thing I wanted to share with you about stress is the idea of thinking about stress or anxiety or fear or worry, whichever word we use, as an emotion, as a human emotion. Now, it has other aspects to it and other definitions to it, but that's one way that people can find quite helpful to think about the word stress or anxiety is another human emotion. So it fits under the umbrella of emotions like love, sad, happy, excited, angry, disgust. It's those one-word labels that we can add, I feel, ... stressed. I feel loved. I feel happy. Why is that important? Is what I'm going to ask you to think about, not answer because we're against the clock, but the benefit of thinking about it as a human emotion is that we now don't need to criticize ourselves for feeling it. Because as with any human emotion, it's automatic. We don't choose it. So I'd ask you to imagine now, you have a loved one that gives you a present wrapped up really nicely. You weren't expecting it, and they just give it to you. Think for yourselves what one-word emotional labels you might feel. Often what comes up is surprised or curious or excited or loved or happy, and that all makes a lot of sense. But when you receive that present, you don't say to yourself, oh, I'm going to feel happy here. Or, yeah, let's cue that emotion in, excited. It just kind of shows up, right? The emotion just shows up in response to the situation. And it's the same for stress. It's the same for the negative emotions. When we are waiting for scan results, when we're waiting for blood test results, anything that's attached to threat or uncertainty, usually the emotion that fits that is anxiety, is stress, is worry. And we don't choose any of that. It just shows up. Is that fair to say? Again, the benefit of that is that now I don't need to blame myself for feeling that. And whilst that doesn't solve it, it can soften it a little bit and remove that additional problem of that self-criticism that I shouldn't be feeling this. Why shouldn't I be stronger? Well, actually, it makes a lot of sense given the situation. And often our emotions are quite true in themselves. They make a lot of sense given the situation. Making sense? Okay. I think a few points of this might have been mentioned. But it's just to say that stress and anxiety really does have a physical component to it, a lot more so than other emotions. So it's just good to note that for our understanding that actually there's something called fight or flight that people might have heard of, and sometimes it's called fight, flight, freeze. The dominant theory is that it's our human response to threat and danger. So our body mobilizes to escape threat or to confront threat, or sometimes to play dead, if you think about sort of caveman and lion examples, as is commonly sort of shared. So again, the benefit of that is that when we're in bed and we're worrying about what might be happening with our cancer, what might be happening with various life stressors, and our heart's racing, our temperature's increased, our mouth's gone dry, it's bringing that understanding to that, actually, I think my fight or flight's been activated. I think I'm worrying here. And that understanding can, again, not necessarily solve the problem in itself, but not create this additional problem of why is my body doing this? And then we then start to interpret, oh, why is my heart racing? What does that mean? But if we can come back to actually it's another human response, that can be helpful for us to soothe us, to soften the sort of distress we might be feeling. Does that make sense? There's plenty more to say on that, but time's limited, so I'll move us on. So this is the stress bucket. This is the sort of main aspect of today. And I'm going to quickly talk about this. It has a few different aspects to it. Now, this picture is not designed specifically for cancer. It's more of a general bucket, but we'll talk through it in the context of cancer. So the stress bucket comes from the theory of stress vulnerability. It comes from a stress vulnerability model, which I won't go into. But the stress bucket is this idea that we all have an open top stress bucket. And throughout life, we have different things feeding our stress bucket. So here we've got sort of workload, financial stress, relationships, to-do lists. And every now and again, throughout life, we'll have a massive pipe, maybe multiple at a time sometimes, of major life stresses. And of course, cancer is one of those. So you could replace that label with cancer. So what that means is typically where our baseline of stress might have been 30 or 40%, when a major life stressor like cancer comes in, now our baseline shoots up to like 80, 90%. What does that mean? It means that we have less space for additional stress, which means that we can overflow much more easily. Are people relating to that? So some people might come and say to me, I never used to respond like that when something like that happened. Like, I can't find my house keys before I leave, and I flipped out about it. Like, why did I do that? And then we have that sort of self-criticism that shows after us, why did I react like that? Well, actually, when we think about what's filling up our stress bucket, it makes a lot of sense. Now, there was plenty of space to lose our house keys before. Now there's not. Now it's enough to overspill. And that overspill can look like different things for different people. Anger, shouting, sadness, crying, sadness, withdrawal, so moving away from people. And we all overspill. It's a part of being human. The aim is not to never overspill, but if we can do it less often and help ourselves to overspill less often, that's a good step. And the bottom part of this image is, and I'm not sure how well you can read it, but on the left-hand side, your left, is the healthy coping. So that's the stuff that you can do that takes water out of your stress bucket. On the right-hand side, we have the unhealthy coping, which does take water out of the stress bucket, definitely, but it can feed it in another way. So a common example of that is like over-drinking. There's other examples of that as well. Now, on the healthy coping side of things, there's some cliche examples here, and they're all good. So there's sort of relaxation time, therapy, exercise, mindfulness, sensory stimulation, and things like that. For me, personally, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. It's pack of biscuits, tea, and a TV show. And that's just me being honest. And it's really about being honest when we think about this in the next few slides. It's what soothes me, what relaxes me, what brings my stress levels down, and it will differ from person to person. There'll be some overlaps, but it can be quite unique sometimes in terms of what soothes us. There are several benefits to this model and image. One of them is it allows us to keep our eyes on our stress levels. So we can ask ourselves when we leave today, if we catch ourselves, we can ask ourselves, actually, where's my stress bucket at? You could get to Sunday and ask yourself, actually, where's my stress bucket at? Is it 50%? Is it 70%? Is it 90%? If it's 90 or 80%, what can I do about it? And it's a way for us to tune into how we're doing, because often we can be an autopilot. We can just be going, overspill, going, overspill. But this allows us to have a sort of a framework to think about it a bit more consciously. Another benefit is thinking about, actually, what can I do about my stress as my input, the things along the top. If it's like an annoying friend that just keeps asking or saying the wrong thing, can I put a boundary in there? Maybe I can reduce my input into my stress bucket. Often is the case we can't, like with cancer. There's very little sometimes we can do with regards to, will the treatment work or not? Well, actually, I can't really influence that. I'm a bit more passive to that. Another benefit is thinking about, okay, what can I control across the bottom? My healthy coping, what does that look like for me? Am I doing enough of it? And the other benefit that I alluded to before is the thing about self-criticism, that actually when I overspill, not if, but when at some point I will overspill, can I come to myself with some understanding that actually my stress bucket has so much feeding into it that it's understandable I would overspill at some point, rather than I shouldn't have, why did I do that? Why did I shout? Why did I, say that or do this? Now, of course, we don't, there's certain things we can improve on and maybe do less of, but it's approaching ourselves with some understanding initially, or in the first case, rather than self-criticism. Does that make sense as a model? Yeah. If it does, then now's a chance for us to be thinking about it for ourselves, Again, you can use the QR code to give some ideas, and it's nice to brainstorm together. Or you can just sit and think about it for yourself. You don't, if QR code's a bit tricky or you don't want to engage with it in that way. Maybe if we go to the first one. The next one, yeah. So the question is, what fills up your stress bucket? So if you just take a moment to think about that, you can contribute to the Mentimeter if you like to, if you're able to. And it's a chance for us to just really just self-reflect. Yeah, we're getting some ideas already. Work's a big one, okay. Cancer, of course. Children, yeah. Scanxiety, I'm glad you mentioned that one. Good term. Teenagers, oh right, we're getting broad. Mistakes being made, yeah, that's a good one. But the person who wrote their partner, I hope you're not sitting next to your partner. You've hidden your screen at least. But this is all true though, isn't it? It's work, it's family, it's relationships, it's cancer, it's health, it's so broad. Again, coming back to our first Mentimeter, it's so broad. Okay. Generally, the rule with Mentimeter is that the larger the word, it means more people have said that same phrase or word. Okay, that's a good snapshot for us, just mindful of time. If we then move on to the next Mentimeter slide, which is the next part of the stress bucket, which is how do I overspill? Or what happens when your stress bucket overflows? What does your overspill look like? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it tears? Is it shouting? What does it look like? And it can be different, it's not necessarily the same thing all the time. Is it staying quiet? Is it being more withdrawn? Anger, tears, shouting, crying, retreat, headache, yeah. Cry, get angry, removing myself, yeah. Panic attacks, yeah. Sarcasm, that's a good one. Not breathing properly. Dizziness, yeah. We'll start to see some of the kind of fight or flight responses in here. So even like the headache, migraine, nausea, yeah. That's the kind of physiological response that we spoke about. Okay. It's not an absolute fact. It's not an absolute rigid rule, but because I'm noticing that anger is the most commonly sort of spoken about one here, it's not an absolute thing, but a lot of the time when we think about anger, there's usually a worry or a fear underneath it. So when somebody expresses anger, we can often, not always, but a lot of the time, pin it back to a worry or a fear. So that's something, we can't go into too much detail about it, but it's something just to think about. Okay, should we move on to the sort of bottom of the bucket, which is now thinking about what do I do to get water out of my stress bucket? What are my healthy coping? Actually, you can put unhealthy coping in this as well. So you can put healthy coping, and if you recognize any unhealthy coping, you can put that in here as well, because it's all about recognizing and understanding. That's the point of today. So go to the next one. So how do you let water out of your stress bucket? What soothes you? What relaxes you? What takes the sting out? What helps you when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed? So we've got exercise is a big one, walking, yoga, so that's quite physical. It's good because, again, anxiety, worry, stress is quite a physical emotion, so it makes sense to be getting it out in a physical way. Swimming, running. TV, I like the honesty, I will connect with you on that one. Eating, I'll also connect with you on that one. Trash TV, yeah. So I'm glad people are being honest. Too much ice cream, yeah, that can dip into unhealthy, can't it? Herbal tea, yeah. Sleeping, yeah. Breath work, good. Yeah, so loads of good ones there. Loads of honest ones as well. Oh, you don't see making love often. Okay. Fine, that's okay. Right. Good. So if we come back to the slides, I hope that was a helpful reflective practice, because if you were able to put or just think about one thing for each of those sections, you have a good foundational understanding of how your stress works. You understand what's a trigger, what feeds your stress bucket, how you overflow, what shows, how you express that, and then what helps you in that as well. And that's 3 core components of it. And there's probably more thought to be had around that you can go away and think about that a bit more. So I hope that was a helpful sort of understanding of stress. In the world of cancer, stress is very prevalent, uncertainty is very prevalent, and so it's important that we connect with that. How am I doing for time? 5 minutes. Oh, okay. So I won't say too much on self-compassion. It's just bringing it to our consciousness. Here's a definition of it. The key thing is about, especially during times of failure, inadequacy, or suffering, that kind of suffering element as well, especially in the world of cancer, that we connect with ourselves in a less self-critical way. It's easy to do it when things are going well. The practice is to do it when actually I'm in a tight spot here, things are not going my way, can I still be kind to myself? Here's an image for us to just ponder on a little bit. I'll let you think about that for yourselves for just a moment. Again, this isn't a cancer-specific image, so the fact that the lady on the left has a bald head is not an indication of anything cancer-related. It's a general image. The thing that I point out to people about this image is that there's only one watering can, which speaks to our limited capacity in looking after ourselves and other people. And sometimes a choice has to be made. Actually, I need to move this can away for a moment to me. And that can feel wrong. When you've got dependents, when you've got people that you're looking after, that can feel wrong, that actually they're going without for a moment. But the challenge to bring to that is actually, will that lead to a catastrophe if I do it for a moment? Because it's coming away from this idea that that's permanent. I'm always going to move it away. So we're not saying that. We're saying, can we move it for a moment to ourselves? So plenty more to be said on self-compassion, but maybe for those of you that want to, would it be helpful to do a bit of a sort of a mindful breathing or a couple of maybe sort of practical exercises to slow us down a little bit, to relax us a little bit? Yeah. So this isn't everyone's cup of tea. I appreciate that. So I was going to do sort of mindful breathing exercise. I'll do it with you guys and just guide us through it. For anyone that's not interested, you've done this thing before and it's not for you. If you want to just sit and be for a moment, reflect, or even be on your phones if you want to, just without disrupting other people. But I appreciate it's not for everyone. For anyone that's skeptical but never done it before, I would invite you to try it so that after today you have evidence that, yeah, it's definitely not for me. I've tried it now, it's not for me. So that's fine as well. So would that be okay if we spend a few minutes on that? So I'm just going to grab a chair, is that okay? And then I can sit down. Thanks. So we'll be, actually I won't say too much. I'll just talk us, if you just follow my guidance in this, what I will do to begin with, and you can follow me in it, is just try to sit comfortably as much as you can. I'm choosing to close my eyes. If you want to close your eyes, you can. If you want to pick a spot to focus on, then you can do that as well. Throughout this, you might need to clear your throat. You might need to make some noises. Don't feel you have to be silent. But just try to notice how your body feels initially and try to let it go as limp as possible. So if you feel your shoulders are up or you're tense in any way, just try to drop those a little bit. And we'll start as we have this session with 3 big belly breaths. Now I want you to imagine a newborn kitten, and we paint a line on the floor, a straight line, and we tell the kitten to follow that line. Now what will the kitten do? It won't follow the line. It'll go left, it'll go right, and that will be our minds throughout this exercise. We'll think about dinner, we'll think about how strange this is, we'll think about the mind will wander, just like the kitten will wander. If you notice your mind wander, just gently pick up your mind and bring it back to what we're focusing on, just as you would pick up the kitten gently and bring it back to the line. So that's just hopefully a helpful image for our wandering mind. So now, if we just bring our breathing back to a normal, gentle, soothing rhythm of in and out, I want you to just focus on the rising and the falling of your chest as you breathe. And if your mind wanders left or right to something else, just gently bring it back. And this will be our anchor, is our breathing in a normal way and the rising and the falling of the chest. Now, if I get you to switch your attention now to your feet, and just think about and describe to yourself how your feet feel. Without judging it too much, just describe how they feel, the textures they're pressing against, any aches or any sort of temperatures that you're feeling. Just notice how your feet feel for a moment, and if your mind wanders away from that, just gently bring it back. And we'll bring our attention gently back to our chest and our breathing and the rising and the falling of our chest. And now if we switch our attention to what we can hear and what we're listening to, any noises, if you just describe them or name them or label them, and there might not be too many noises, and that's okay. Just notice what you can hear and pick up. And if your mind wanders away from that, again, just gently bring it back. Now if we shift our attention back to our breathing and the rising and the falling of our chest, again, if the mind wanders away, just notice that and gently bring it back to the breathing. Now what we'll do is take 3 big belly breaths again. In through the nose, out through the mouth, if that helps you. And then we'll come back into the conference. Okay, you can open your eyes or reconnect back into the room. How did people find that? Okay. Were you able to engage with the shifting of the attention? Were you able to notice your mind wander away and bring it back? Yeah. If you were, that means you've got. If you haven't, that's fine. It takes a lot of practice. If you have, it means there's a strong foundation there to when we're outside of this conference and a worry shows up. If you're able to notice, that's basically the kitten straying. Like, let's say you're talking to your family or you're watching TV and your mind goes to cancer. That's the kitten straying. That's your attention moving, and you want to notice that and bring it back. It's not going to solve what the worry is, but it will allow you to connect back into the present moment, which is kind of what mindfulness is. Plenty more to be said on that, but that's just a bit of a nugget. So maybe just one thing to think about for yourselves is what one action will you do for yourself after today? Because today's action has already been attending this conference, so you don't have to do anything else today. If you do, that's a bonus. But a part of your well-being today has been to look after yourselves, to prioritize yourselves, to protect this time for yourselves and be here. So that's already ticked done. It's thinking about tomorrow now. Actually, what one thing can I do for myself tomorrow? And I probably run over, but thank you for engaging with that. I hope it was helpful.